All right, welcome to episode 3 of the Occult podcast, where we do, or at least just talk about inadvisable things in the name of magical science. I am Tyler Cadmian, aka Shadow.
This is Felix S. Warren.
Ooh, we've got the middle initial coming out.
I have an extra 10% of me every time I say my middle initial.
Ooh, good to know. Well, Bad Occult podcast is run by the same people who run Bad Occult Advice. The reason why I'm bringing that up at the start is because we have stuff to announce.
Yes, we do. We are in more places now.
We are in more places now. Please, Felix, tell us where we're at now.
So you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on Substack, and those are places where you can find the podcast audio only. Now, before, you were able to find us on Twitch live whenever we do these on Sundays or Mondays, depending on how we feel.
Or Tuesdays,
yeah.
Or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
We are time travelers, you're just going to have to deal with that part. And of course on YouTube, you can find our archived episodes of the video episodes. And now you can also find us on Etsy. We don't have the store completely open yet, but you can find it there.
The name is Bad Occult Apothecary, and what we're intending to do is provide supplies sometimes related to things that we're talking about in the podcast. Usually it's just stuff that we're using ourselves. We're finishing up some things, but preview/spoiler, we're going to have a lot of things related to hawthorn.
Yep, we're going to have hawthorn thorns, definitely, some leaves. There's going to be some other special stuff. I found some trees around that have paper bark on them, and that can be used for all kinds of interesting things.
Yes.
So we're sharing the wealth.
We are, because, on top of being bad occultists, we're actually foragers and wildcrafters. Eventually, I am actually working on getting my wood carving and wood just basically sanding, cleanup, polishing process set back up. So maybe eventually we'll have wands.
Right now we've got basically wand wood, but like actual finished polished wands, broomsticks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's our ambitions. So, watch that space.
Yep, Bad Occult Apothecary. It is technically on vacation mode right now as we're finishing things up, but that should be up, I'd say, by next week.
Yeah, within days.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then, to wrap things up, we have got an email.
Yes,
actually,
we do.
It's more like we rediscovered that I had already signed us up for an email.
We had it all this time.
All this time.
Just like time travelers do.
badoccultadvice@gmail.com if you want to reach out to us and not send a Tumblr ask. Maybe you don't have Tumblr. Maybe you don't want to get on Tumblr. Maybe you are a denizen of the part of the internet that doesn't get access to Tumblr. Now you can reach out to us. Gmail will be checked sporadically, so don't expect immediate responses. Same rules as the Ask Box. If we don't like it, we might not answer it. So just know that it will go into the void, and the void listens and appreciates, but may not respond.
We never know what the void will do.
No.
So, that's our news.
That's our news. Now to get on to what the episode is actually about. And I feel like this is a continuation of what's been the topic of discussion in the household for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just ever since we started the podcast, we've been examining a lot more about our beliefs individually and as a collective on summoning types, different styles, summoning versus channeling versus evocation versus invocation,
Ooh.
It's interesting as part of our foray into magical science. We do take the scientific side of it very seriously. We're always willing to revisit old theories, old hypotheses. We never really set things as like, yes, this is a bedrock of our belief system until it's been thoroughly scientifically tested. I don't think we've raised anything to the level of a theorem yet.
Yeah, like we don't really have a belief system where there's a dogma.
Yeah.
We simply respect that these are the things that happen when we do stuff. We respect causality.
Yeah. No, I mean, we understand that we're in a reality where I can't snap my fingers and suddenly fire appears. I mean...
Only with flash powder.
Yeah, but I'm talking like light a cigarette fire. But you'd have to have something in between, you know. I can click my thumb and have fire, but that's with holding something.
Yeah.
So... But yeah, it's sort of been an outgoing topic, and I kind of figured that it would be a good time to talk about it. First with Felix, and then we are going to bring Rob on, who has been a guest of ours for both episodes now, to talk about his side of things. So, I guess, is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Well, so far, we've been demonstrating channeling for a few episodes now, and it's me just having an entity into my body to talk here for a while, and then they go. And with channeling and summoning, we should talk about what we mean by those words.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is just how we say things in the household. I don't think there's ever going to be strict dictionary definitions for all these things and specific terms you have to use, but channeling basically means like I've turned the channel over to the Rob station, and that's who comes through now. And that channel can just like be switched back to me at any time. It's like, you know, I'm a TV. And
that is more of an internal experience, whereas summoning is someone outside either commanding, demanding, inviting an entity in. It could be into an empty space where there is a circle on the ground. It could be staring into your own eyes in a mirror. It could be commanding an entity appear inside someone else, a la like a forced channeling, kind of.
Well, so it's just a different kind of channeling, because so we've been talking a lot in the household about specifically goetic summoning and goetic channeling, because, I mean, if you look in Ars Goetia, it's not very clear how you're actually supposed to do this. But if you do enough research, it was very common for demons to be summoned into children or very innocent, very, let's say, clean or untampered with people.
Yes.
And the purpose behind that was that they were considered people who simply wouldn't be able to act like that unless they actually had that entity put into them.
Right, because they would not either have the life experiences or the knowledge, you know, memories, any associated stuff that the entity could pull upon.
They could easily be tested.
Right. To have knowledge of things outside of themselves. Sometimes this is a little bit of a heavy topic for me, Tyler, in particular, because unfortunately I was one of those innocents, and I have had experiences of goetic summonings where I was the target.
You were the vessel.
I was the vessel, yeah.
And, by the way, I'm going to talk about this kind of clinically, and that's kind of how I deal with my emotions on the topic, because I do not agree with someone having another entity forced into them. And I'm letting the listeners know that, obviously, Tyler and I have had a lot of discussions about this personally before.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, actually, speaking of such, some listeners may have heard of the Satanic Panic. And the Satanic Panic, it's kind of two things. When it's referred to, people mean either the actual things happening involving demons, or the the absolute ruin that it put upon the profession of psychology for a while.
Yeah.
So basically, in the 80s, there was a lot of cultist activity involving Satanism and children.
Yes.
I'm saying Satanism. I'm not talking about like the Church of Satan that puts up the statues and like fights things in the government. I'm talking about people who do bad things with demons. I'm a person who does like just regular things with demons. And like there's really bad press about like satanic cults where people like from churches say that like they're full of gay people and they're like having like weird bad sex, and that is not the same as what we were talking about. Usually the satanic panic type of cults were run by churches.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that they felt entitled to be able to use demons because demons were the bad guys.
Right.
So they were taking demons, putting them into various people they can control. Children, the mentally ill, the handicapped. And then it's like, okay, well, now you're in a wheelchair. Give me some gold.
Yeah.
And it's okay because it's a demon and they're God's people. And it happened a lot more often than some of you might think. Some of you may know exactly how often it happened, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. As well, some of these same churches were also the same ones that were doing like exorcisms. I also have a family member who had an exorcism performed on them due to signs that the church that they were in was taking as possession, demonic possession, but later on was found out to be a form of bipolar that was widely misunderstood at the time. It's actually manic psychotic, which is more of a recent terminology for it. And bipolar and a lot of like schizophrenia, any kind of psychosis was very misunderstood during the time. So unfortunately, that's another experience I have as well because I was present at it. So yeah. Satanic panic, the church, churches were doing both sides of it. They were doing the exorcisms, and then some.
Well, they had to do the exorcisms because they fucking put them in the first place.
Well, in some cases, it was basically like, oh, we didn't summon this demon into that person. We can't control it, so we must exorcise it.
Yeah.
So.
But to know how to get rid of it.
Yes.
Maybe you should ask why they know how to get rid of a demon.
Yes.
It's a good question to ask.
Yeah. So, that's my personal history on it. Also lends some of my knowledge to how some of these things go, which is a very interesting avenue to have information on. One thing that we want to bring up is, like, aside from Ars Goetia and I think a couple other books, you can't really find much information on, like, straight out, like, this is how to for demon summoning.
There's one way to find it, and you need to join a secret society, and then you will do it their way, and they will hypnotize you to make sure you never leave their society. That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is to find their materials that they don't think anybody else could find.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've basically been collecting various methods, and sometimes I would go to a church who did these kinds of things for 6 months pretending to be a Christian to see what it is that they would say or give away.
Yeah.
So, we've been around the block finding various methods, and, well, what is it that we do?
Mm-hmm. Because we've been talking a lot about, like, goetic summoning, or goetic, I guess, anything having to do with Goetia. And, all the reading kind of sucks because, like, the demons are already assumed to be the bad guys.
Yes, we had a little bit of this come up in the last podcast, but I went ahead and did a little bit of research into the descriptions of those two's actual demon listings.
Yeah.
And, if you read through the Ars Goetia demon descriptions, take note that some of the listings use terms like demand answers, or will do something if like punished enough, and other entries won't say stuff like that. And so the whole listing on the demon can mislead you into certain assumptions about that demon, certain assumptions about what you should be doing, and it definitely leads the practitioner to think that they need to have a heavy hand.
Yeah.
And it's a very oppositional, very adversarial relationship from the start.
Very much so.
If you go by the letter of the book.
Yeah. So we do practice summoning in some cases. Obviously, for the entities that you guys have met, Rob and Mantis, we aren't doing goetic summonings. I mean, I kind of talked about with Mantis about how that wouldn't work like that. But, we've done that with them in the past.
And summoning means that they show up right when you call, no matter what.
Yes. Now, if a viewer were to attempt a summoning and the entity did not show up,
there are instructions in some of the books on that. Some entities are actually known for sending surrogates instead of themselves unless you do a certain thing, or you will have to talk to the surrogate first, and then they will come themselves after you prove yourself to the surrogate.
Yeah.
There are some where it's more difficult to get them to come up, and you just have to keep on trying. There's that.
Yeah. But if it seems like a totally just
no answer on the
call.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I've never had that happen, but I also haven't been calling the whole phone book deliberately all the time. So there have been a couple of times where I don't do on the spot summoning very much.
Right.
With the entities that I work with regularly, it's more like, hey, could you? Okay, great. And so sometimes they've replied, actually now's not a good time, or why don't you call so-and-so instead? It would be a better idea.
Right.
With summoning, you don't get that. They just show the hell up. I haven't done a summoning where they haven't showed up.
Interesting. Yeah, I trying to think. I don't think I've witnessed one. So
if you do a full-on summoning, you come in meaning it.
Yeah.
And I with channeling, it's more like a phone call. You know, if they don't pick up, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, trying to think anything else about summoning.
I wanted to mention check-in type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I will just do check-ins with entities, and it's similar to the channeling that you hear over here, but, I also can just telepathically, without even switching the key item that I use to be able to channel certain entities, I can just telepathically check in, hey, so how's it going? What's been up lately? Have you been looking at, the presidential election shit? Because it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even require a full-on channel. It doesn't require anything official. But the reason I'm able to do that is because I've already been in contact with those entities so much that I can so lightly contact them and be sure it's still them.
Right. Yeah. It's just more of the internal confirmations. A lot of this does require psychic abilities or awareness of psychic abilities, because so much of it is mental in certain ways, especially when it comes to more of the summoning type of things, because you have to project an aura of being in control.
Yeah, so the summoner and the channeler are doing two different jobs whenever a full-on summoning is happening into a person. If there's, you can do a summoning where you're the person summoning and you're the person channeling at the same time, and you get to be both parts of the phone call. But it's a lot easier with two people, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So the channeler is basically a very good potato. So when you channel and someone else is summoning an entity into you, you don't really do anything besides not be there and they show up. There's just no job that you're doing besides that. You can be good at it in that you are able to prepare your body for it and your mind and make it an easier process to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time as a channeler, your whole thing is that you're not there.
Right.
Whereas the summoner
has to be 100% present.
Yes.
Especially if you're summoning an entity that you've never met before. Like, there's times where you basically have to do your first summoning of someone, and like how that goes that first time can basically change your whole relationship with that entity.
Hey, you know what? I could talk about how I've messed this up.
Yeah.
So when I say mess this up, I don't want to act like there's mistakes you can make that you just shouldn't make, because sometimes stuff just happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I was told I needed to summon a certain entity at a certain time, and that certain time was when I was having a mental health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so the summoning that I did was successful and did get the results that we needed. But it was also excruciating for me, the entity summoned, and the channeler. All three of us. It was a bad experience.
Yeah.
But it was also successful. We got through it. And the next time that I did a summoning with that entity went much better, because I gained such a complete understanding of what I needed to do instead.
Yeah.
And also, I recovered from my mental health crisis a little bit.
Yay!
It's a lot easier to do it when you're not having one of those.
Yes. Unfortunately, sometimes those things happen. So yeah, rule number 1, if you can, don't do it when you're having a mental health crisis.
If you are having a mental health crisis, we'll have a separate episode where we really talk through that. I think it deserves its own discussion. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you show up to work and you puke.
Yeah.
And then you drive home. You don't die.
And sometimes things are going to go wrong because you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, like there was no way for me to have learned what it is I learned during that first summoning without going through it.
Right.
We were experiencing some extremely interesting phenomena at that time involving non-temporal, non-linear temporal interactions. And until you do that the first time, it's funny to say that you're doing it the first time too, because it's non-linear, so you can't even really do that. But once you've gone through it,
yeah, you hopefully carry that information on until the next time. Another thing is that with entities, especially goetic entities or any kind of like demons or anything that have more of a presence, there are going to be temporal shifts, non-linearity experiences, weird woogity shit might happen. And what it looks like is different for, in some cases, the entity, in some cases, the place that you're in some cases, the people that are there, like, depending on what, like, natural psychic gifts you have as a channeler versus a summoner versus the witnesses, because one of the things is that these entities can actually exert some hypnotic or mind control or other sort of psychic effects that can cause other people to do psychic things.
They can also cause effects that are similar to psychosis. They can do mind-altering they can make a mind-altering experience.
Yeah.
And that's usually why people are calling them up, to be honest. But it means that... Go ahead.
I gotta get my fix, man. I gotta get that fix.
Oh, you have no idea how many practitioners I have met who are like that, who are using this in place of drugs. Or with. And I'm not saying it's bad to do either, but recognizing that you're doing it is the first step to clarity.
Yes.
So, I think we should bring Rob in.
I think so.
I'm starting to feel like I'm not going to be here.
See, and that's one of the things when it comes to channeling. One thing that was brought up, since this podcast is going audio only, I should describe a couple of things that are going on screen while Felix is channeling Rob.
Yeah, so you're not going to be able to see the portraits if you're listening to audio only. If you go to YouTube, you will be able to see the portraits. They're backed up there.
Yes.
I'm trying to put the art with the episodes, but we're only going to have like one picture per episode the way that podcasts come out. Anyway.
Yeah. So, Felix right now is being depicted by himself with sunglasses. So, and then we're going to switch, as Felix is switching, we're going to switch to Rob's portrait, which is a guy in a trench coat with a button-down shirt, top buttons undone, sort of cheek length, ear length, black hair, and a nice, I think it's a trilby. And all the pictures that Felix has drawn... Fedora, thank you. All the pictures that Felix has drawn have been grayscale. And, I mean, I've got my little fox Sona sitting there sipping a coffee, like always. Oh, hello, kitty cat. Of course you know something's up.
Get up here. Hey, so...
Welcome, Rob.
Yeah, the fedora has a wider brim. That's how you can usually tell the difference.
So, Fedora Man.
And it's an older fedora, so it's, like, definitely a wider brim.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I pat the cat.
We must beat the cat drum, for the spirit has arrived.
Yes. So, talking about channeling and summoning with a guy who's often channeled and summoned.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Of course.
So, you may not have met me before, podcast listeners, but I am a demon. I don't go by my, like, demon name on the podcast, but I am in the Goetia. So I have a lot of experience being summoned because of that.
We just call him Rob. He's our friend Rob.
Yep. And you can, let whoever it is that you're working with in the Goetia have a casual name, and you might actually find some better interactions from that.
Yeah.
So, I just got here. I don't really...
Welcome! Yes.
Thanks.
Felix and I were talking a bit about summoning versus channeling as practitioners, but I thought it'd be cool to bring you on to talk about, like, your side of things. And, in some ways kind of commiserate, because I've sort of experienced some of that.
Yes, you have.
As the summonee.
So, well, I would like to start by talking about summoning in specific.
Yeah.
If you're a Goetia, you don't really get to... I don't get a whole lot about what's going on before I end up there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you were in some sort of improv situation where they teleported you into the situation and then you had to improv. Mm-hmm. Just no real heads up. Yeah. You can get some heads up, especially with some practitioners do this on purpose. They set it up to where the spirit can actually have a sense of what is going on before they really show up.
Right.
And a lot of that is what ritual is actually for. It's giving the spirit cues about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And if you always use the same ritual, then that spirit is going to know to always show up in that same way.
Right.
But, a lot of practitioners don't really want to give any heads up to the spirit ahead of time because they're trying to trick us into something.
Yes.
Or they just want
make you aware of something.
They want an advantage.
Yeah. And one of the first advantages that I actually want to talk about is prepping the body of the person who's going to be channeling this entity.
Spiking the punch.
Spiking the punch. So there's a lot of like ritual elements and things that are actually only there to hypnotize the person who is going to be channeling the entity. Spoilers for anyone who does any ritual theater or any sort of like ritual summoning. A lot of that is there to hypnotize the person you're aiming at.
Yeah. So the covert hypnosis that is in ritual, the chanting, repeated chanting, like same thing over and over again, nonsense words, especially because then the verbal center of the brain doesn't get to do as much with it and just has to deal with it.
Yeah.
Any kind of flashing lights, any kind of patterns that are sort of confusing to the eye, like a magic eye sort of pattern. The sacred geometry does that.
Yes. Also, the ritual wear is meant to confuse. I mean, Felix was bringing up the fact that, like, oftentimes innocents or the handicapped or mentally or physically disabled were being used as channeling targets. And the ritual wear, the low lights, also serve to confuse, and in some cases that's enough to have a trance-like state or a hypnotic induction.
I mean, I'm going to go over to stage magic, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Magic tricks are done in a prepared environment where the audience sees in a certain way, and the magician controls how and what the audience sees. That's the entire part of the magic trick. You can do magic tricks to entities who are summoned. You can do magic tricks to the guests at your ritual day, and that will enhance what is going on. And I'm not saying that sleight of hand magic tricks and stuff like that is fake or bad. I'm telling you that it's actually an extremely powerful part of magical practice.
Now, this is actually reminding me, I used to work in fields such as high-pressure sales as insurance. Yeah, try selling life insurance to people who are late on their bills.
Oh, those insurance sales, that's how you're such a good summoner. You know how to lay the pressure on.
So, one of the things is that you can... basically by impressing someone with information or like that is one way to get people to start buying in, you know, just like a lot of little magic tricks on the way to the big trick makes people into more of a mindset that they would accept what's going to happen. So you know, not dissimilar to getting the yeses. The more times you can get someone to say yes to something insignificant, the higher the chance of getting them to say yes to something significant.
I feel like you've just uncovered the real reason between offerings at rituals. Give them a present to lead with.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're going to like you more. Like, and it's... I'm not saying it's bad to give your entities cookies. It's just that the way that the whole God party is usually set up, like, I've been to ones where I'm the special guest, and I've been to ones where I'm the antagonist. And the special guests, they give all the presents to, and then they're like, hey, can you, like, do us some blessings now that we've, like, given you a cake or whatever? And the deity's like, oh, yeah, sure, because I feel so nice about this. And with the demon, they're like, you! Until you give us all of your credit card numbers, we're not going to let you go!
Carrot or stick.
Yeah. No, boy. I mean, sometimes the sticks are pretty fun, but most people prefer carrots.
Wow. Sometimes sticks are fun.
It is something that's bandied about a lot in occultist circles. Magicians will talk about how demons actually prefer to be treated like that, and unless you like actually show up front that you can really lay down the punishment, they just won't take you seriously and actually like open up the real stuff to you. Right. And it's like that's a pretty good excuse. I give you that.
So. Yeah, so those kind of things can put people into mindsets where they're more willing to accept the outcome, more easily able to be channeled into things like that. So yeah, spiking the punch in many different ways.
Yes,
so.
It's like because it's very common, especially for witchcraft rituals, to have pre-spiked punch that everybody knows about. Have Damiana in it, have mugwort, wormwood, all kinds of different magical herbs that are all slight or heavy psychotic inducing.
Yeah.
And that is there to help the channeler become a different person and think in completely different ways.
Yeah.
But also, the entity that's coming into that brain is gonna be mugworted up.
Yes.
You're gonna be highly suggestible if you end up in a host that has been ingesting these kinds of substances.
Right. And so, that is something that the entity may not even be aware of, because, like, how often are entities able to connect to a body that has mugwort and then be able to directly compare with the same body on nothing, They're not often given the opportunity to examine the health of the bodies that they're inhabiting.
I can't tell you how few times I could count on one of these hands how many times that someone has actually let me go to the bathroom while I've been channeled in someone.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want the entity to go be somewhere alone for a while. I understand the safety reasons behind that, but it's very hard to check in on the body whenever you're only invited to parties and you're never there for the after party.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's something as well, limited ability to basically check in on stuff like that. So if, for example, you were in a summoning and the body felt like it had to go to the bathroom, would you just, like, not notice, or, like...
It depends on the channeler. Mm-hmm. Some channelers have been trained to have bodies that ignore this. Sometimes in the state that you're channeled, you simply are uncognizant. If it is like a traditional goetic summoning or another where it's adversarial, you don't really know you need to go to the bathroom until after your panic attack is done. So if you're... So, getting very psychological here, your body's core defense mechanisms activate in response to various stresses. So if a goetic summoner makes a demon feel actual for their life terror, the demon is just gonna not even be aware of the whole bathroom thing and hold it for the duration. Yeah. Now, if you're terrible at this, let's say that the person who's channeling drank like 8 glasses of water. Oh. Like, then, there may just be a bathroom accident right there if you're extremely ill prepared. Oh. Like, have your channeler go to the bathroom beforehand.
Do the basic shit.
You do the basic literal shit. I didn't really expect to get here, but you've got to understand that these entities do not get to really check in about that regularly, and are probably not going to be in a mental state where they can be that aware of it.
Yeah. And actually, this is a good time to bring up, like, we're doing this live recording on Monday, not Sunday, and we started, like, 15 minutes later than 9 p.m. that we aim for.
Yeah. And I'm glad.
Part of...
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know why, and so I'm glad.
And part of it is because, like, Felix and I did need the time to, like, eat food, drink water, you know, make sure all our stuff was set up beforehand. So, like, in the middle of things, we don't have to be like, oop, gotta pause, because, oh my god, those breaks are hard to edit out.
Like, channeling in here is like a dream right now, because it's a well-fed body that was well-rested and prepared itself for this whole thing. It isn't all stressed. Like, Felix had the time and opportunity to do the things that are necessary before a channeling so that I can come in here and feel great on this podcast. And if that weren't the case, I really wouldn't be able to be present like I am here now.
Right, because you would be distracted. Like, part of the things is that since you're a well-known guest around these parts, you are able to check in on things that most summoned entities wouldn't even think to check in on, you know? Like, I mean, episode 1, you helped out with the cats because one of them was being loud. You were able to get up and walk around. That's often difficult for entities their first or second time in a body, even if they've been invited.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Felix has definitely had some moments where he's channeling an entity and they suddenly realize that they could stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And stretch.
Yeah.
That's just not common.
Yeah.
I will demonstrate.
He is standing up right now.
Ugh.
He is making a loud stretching noise while he's actually stretching his arms.
You know, it's healthy to do this, and I just like knowing I can.
Yeah. Wonderful stretch.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody was educated on that one.
And I mean, like, Mantis being able to run through a grounding in the body last episode. Mm-hmm. Like, not all entities have the cognizance of the body or the ability to even connect to that kind of cognizance, depending on how the summoning is. So, one of the things we're actually going to be doing, most likely before next episode, we are going to do a summoning where we are summoning Rob through a more traditional, less casual form.
Yeah, so I'm allowing them to do an experiment where they do more traditional goetic summoning. That is, I'm not going to say, well, no, it is inherently adversarial.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about this ahead of time. I've given them advice on how they should best do this with me to make it safest for them and also me.
Yeah.
And we want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why we're at this point where we can do that is because we've developed enough, like, comfort with
rapport,
each other, that we're okay doing this. I want to know what happens. I don't get to have often much cognizance of myself in these strict summoning conditions.
Yeah.
It's really a different state of mental awareness. It's very hard to take back to my physical body usually.
So, Mantis and I were talking about different, like, dimensional levels of awareness. And, you know, we'll probably talk about this more after, because we're going to be probably talking about summoning aftermath. Like, my going theory is that it is probably a 6th or 7th dimensional awareness that is being
at least
summoned.
5th.
Because it's very hard to aim for, you know, even a 4th dimensional, because, like, they're still in their own linear timeline, and part of this experiment is to see how granular we can get, because I'd be very interested to know if we could get it down from, like, 6th or 7th dimension down to 5th or so.
Yeah, I'm curious as well, because it's like carrying consciousness back and forth between a transcendental self and a more in this physical reality self, in one physical reality at a time, this very specific one that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's hard carrying that information back and forth, especially because if I'm going from a 7-dimensional self to this 4th-dimensional self, I'm not the only 4th-dimensional self that's going to get that information.
Right.
A bunch of me's are going to be getting that 7-dimensional information all at once.
Yes.
And because I also experience things on these other dimensional levels, on a 5-dimensional level, I'm going to experience the other me's getting the information at the same time.
Yes.
And it's very easy to get lost in this kind of thing. So knowing that a specific practitioner is going to be channeling me in a specific way at a specific time, being able to arrange it ahead of time and consciously know it in my physical body, that really changes the procedure, and I think makes it more into a science experiment.
Definitely, especially because we're going to be talking to you, Rob, after the fact, you know, on that 4th-dimensional level, to find out what experiences you've brought back. And, you know, hopefully next episode we'll also record some of those observations that we've had. I'm just going to make a blanket statement. Unless we, like, specifically arrange it ahead of time, we are not going to be doing summonings live. Partially because there are visual components that are very hard to translate into an audio format. A lot of it is silence. A lot of it is psychic in nature, which is very hard to transcribe in an audio, even or a visual format.
I think you would need a third person to observe and describe things. And unfortunately, if you had another person there talking out loud about that stuff, it would disrupt what is going on with the summoning and the channeling. So I think you would have to do things like put noise-canceling headphones on the person channeling, so that they could only hear,
or a camera or something. But that also introduces sort of another element of a lot of entities with the traditional goetic summonings. They don't like it being recorded.
Oh yeah.
They're
just recording it in and of itself would be an experiment. This is like a classic ghost hunting experience where, you know, people's equipment all bugs out once they get to the haunted house.
So we're just not going to do it because, like, I like my laptop. I like the mic that we have right now. I have seen electronics totally, completely fail in a way that they cannot be recovered, and it's very strange and, like, unlikely, like, short circuits and stuff when people are trying to do summonings on camera.
I could actually give you another thing that can happen.
Because
Felix has tried to audio record some of his work with goetic entities, and what happened is that he simply forgot that he had the recorder.
Yeah.
Just almost permanently forgot that he had that device.
Straight up, completely forgot. Yeah, that's sort of like something that Felix and I were talking about before you came in, Rob, was that, like, entities can have temporal effects. They can have mind control effects. You know, just like making someone completely forget that they have a audio recorder that they can just, like, hit play, you know, or record on, is enough to prevent a goetic entity that doesn't want to be recorded from being recorded. So
now there's a few things I think that you could do, but I wouldn't try recording this particular summoning.
No.
I would say that there's a thing that Mantis brought up last episode I wanted to follow up on.
Yeah.
Some entities, when summoned the traditional goetic way, will automatically go out of their way to make the experience miserable for the practitioner.
Yeah.
Because they just don't like doing that, or maybe their opinion can vary, but that's what they like to do every time, is just mess with you as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so the device is breaking and such. That's a part of it. The entity does not know that you're a friendly or whatnot. they're going to assume that this is going to be an outright confrontation like usual.
I mean, because of the steps that you use, it just the you have to work under the assumption that you are adversarial. I mean, Mantis and I kind of talked about it last episode that like the summoner is using the threat of the holy fire of God to command the demon appear and do what the summoner wants. That's going to set up just a very adversarial relationship no matter what kind of entity you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. The summoner is traditionally recognized as Solomon, the guy who put us all into the brass vessel in the first place, the guy who got a demon to build his temple for him.
Yeah.
Like, his whole deal was enslaving demons to do work for him.
Yeah.
And then putting them in a big jail. So, like, if you're working from the standpoint of being Solomon, these demons are going to treat you like you're Solomon.
Yes.
You're not going to get very friendly ponies.
Yeah.
You're going to get kelpies.
You're going to get nightmare fuel. So, yeah. And I mean, the summoning procedure, I'm going to call it a procedure.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to call it. That Felix and I have sort of developed is not less straight adversarial because we're not pulling on that traditional Solomonic, but it is basically the summoner is in charge here, and if they don't like what you're doing, they're going to potentially kick your ass.
So with the summoning, I'd like to comment on what it is that you're doing and why. Let's say that there's an entity that shows up in someone's life. Perhaps an entity has been hired by someone to bother you.
Yeah.
So when that entity shows up and bothers you, you're going to want to know what its whole freaking deal is.
Yeah.
And one way that you can know what its whole freaking deal is manage to summon it under these particular circumstances where you can bind it to say what you want, tell the truth, not harm you or others and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then you can basically be like, okay, now that I've kind of put you here, I want to know, what's your deal?
What?
You don't even have to get, like, once you get to the point where they're quiet and in the chair, as it were, you can actually just be like, so what's your deal? Look, like, if you promise not to be an asshole and snort it down your throat badly, I'll even give you a cup of tea. But, like, what's your freaking deal? I need to know for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And from there, it's basically, like, how much information you can get to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes this entity might even be interested in further work with you because you had a good interaction with them. And you may even be getting them out of a bad relationship with the previous practitioner.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, Felix and I were looking for an alternative to the Solomonic, where it's like, you assume that the entity that you're summoning, is bad, is going to be mean, and you have to, make sure it knows that God is on your side in order for it to behave. And this is a lot more, your will coming to bear versus another's. But I feel like it does require a lot less of the honestly unnecessary trappings. If you come at it with just basically, okay, this is a entity that is able to do reality bending shit, but if we have a neutral to okay interaction, then they're going to be more likely to be nice in the future. That's a better place to start from. So, I'm not going to say that, like, our summonings are, like, a nice picnic in the park.
Well, it depends on what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody shows up who was sicked on you to be, an asshole, and then they act like an asshole whenever you're like, okay, what's your deal?
Yeah.
Then, things are just gonna escalate.
When you bind something to truthfulness, and you bind them against harm and they're still being a dick, then that's just their personality, unfortunately. And, if you bind something to truthfulness and against harm, and it's like, yeah, this is what was going on, this is just business,
Mm-hmm.
then you can start at a more neutral to pleasant place.
Yeah, and speaking on the summonings thing, if you're summoning an entity, it's because you want to deal with that particular entity in this particular way.
Yeah.
Now, the bindings may not always be necessary for each session, and I'm mentioning this for a couple of reasons. One, keeping up bindings is more psychic force and more energy.
Taxing.
It can be very taxing. There are ways of alleviating that, putting it onto something environmental to feed it, but you're still keeping up a binding. Psychically, you're keeping tabs on that.
Yeah.
It's another thing to do.
So...
But also, if you're binding someone to only speak the truth.
Yeah.
That can be very limiting, and every single entity has to interpret that in their own way.
Yep.
So it's taxing for them. They're constantly checking to make sure that they're saying the truth with every statement.
Yeah.
And the same with, not harming yourself or others.
They have to constantly be thinking about what they're saying and doing and how it can constitute harm.
Yeah. I can basically sit around now and not harm myself or others.
Yeah.
Without being told to. But if I was, bound to, I would be focused on that. It would be another operation for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I'm talking about first initial summonings. Later summonings, obviously, if you're going to summon someone again, you'd have to have, either you like them enough that you want them to come back, or you have further questions on what they shared, and you want them to come back. And so bindings after that point are basically on a case-by-case basis, in my opinion. But, with the summoning that we're going to be doing with Rob, it's going to be our traditional, basically first interaction rules that Felix and I have sort of developed together. I'm not going to share all of them, but good ideas for bindings in general is, binding them to tell the truth and against harm for to themselves, that the body that they're inhabiting, or to others. And usually what you want to do is say for the duration of the summoning, or until, you're gone or whatever. This particular wording is dependent on, honestly, individual summoners. I personally take a pretty casual approach, pretty straightforward approach, but other summoners, they are more careful about what they say when.
Care towards speech is very common in these procedures. Depending on the entity that you're working with and how pissed off it is at you.
Yeah.
Anything that you say can be used.
May be used against you in a court of demons.
If an entity is exerting psychic force, they may be trying to get someone to say more than they should. Yeah. And so there are a lot of practitioners that are extremely cagey with their words. There are a lot of rituals in which the instruction is only say the stuff in the script and absolutely no more, no matter what. No matter what the demon says or tries or makes interesting or tries to engage you in conversation, only stick to the script. And that is often guidance that is given. I've given you the reasons. I will also say, I think they're very boring people. That's my opinion.
Oh, the opinion of a demon. So, summonings that go wrong. there's definitely experiences where summonings go sideways. Either you have channeled something and you didn't do your research and it's a lot bigger, feistier, or whatever than you expected. Maybe you forgot to bind it in the beginning to something as simple as, like, don't harm the body.
Mm-hmm.
And you told it not to harm others, but, like, for some reason that demon doesn't count the body as another. Whatever. Know the difference between dismissals and banishings. Dismissals can be used basically when you are not in a foobar situation. Dismissals are basically being like, thank you for your time, I ask you to leave, or I command you to leave, that kind of language. Banishing is basically get out.
And I will say that, the dismissal is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You may go is like one of them, but the banishing, you are banished is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Use the B word. The great thing about the B word is, well, if you stipulate it correctly, they won't come back.
Yes. And one of the things to be aware of is it does take a lot more psychic effort to banish someone than it does to dismiss them. Because basically dismissing them means that you're opening the door for them to leave. And they usually usher themselves out. Sometimes with a little bit of a push, but it's not like you're absolutely like picking them up and drop kicking them. Banishing is more like you've slammed open the door and you just like Sparta kicked them through it. And then slammed the door behind them. So that's something to be aware of, because if you end up in a situation where things have gone sideways, you are just going to want to banish. You're not going to want to try to dismissal because it's already gone bad. They're not going to leave.
Yeah, I kind of ended up empty a little bit when it came to topic-wise.
Yeah.
This is a little weird for me to talk about, to be honest. It's I've had a couple of moments where I've either said different things than I expected to say, or just had a little trouble continuing to think on the topic.
Well, because you're coming from the angle of the channeled or the summoned, and I'm talking as a summoner. There's some stuff that you just wouldn't have advice on.
So the thing is that you and I, like, we talk casually outside of this podcast, but this may be my first time talking with a practitioner who is a summoner as an entity who is channeled. And can I talk about how this is for me personally?
Yes.
It's slightly uncomfortable.
Really?
It is. I am used to you guys having the advantage. But also it's uncomfortable in that I'm a bit of a Promethean soul. I care for the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm uncomfortable for channelers who are forced to do this.
Yes.
For people who are in a situation where they have to do this summoning because they have no other choice to do it. And they have to actually put another entity through this whole thing, not wanting to, because it's the only way. I'm uncomfortable that the situation exists.
And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, is because, like, I can empathize as someone who was channeled through as a child. And, the uncomfortableness stays with you. And I believe it probably is on your end as well, on some level, knowing that in some cases, like, the person who's channeling you in some way is unwilling or unknowing is always a tough thing.
It's very difficult to like, we often don't even have an awareness of this
Yeah.
on this temporal level, and it is difficult to think through the fact that I don't really know what state all of the people who channeled me were actually in.
Right.
And really what happened to them afterward, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a cat coming in here concerned for me.
Aww.
Yes, you heard. You heard that we were both trying to process some stuff. So, I'm petting a cat now. He came up and did this willingly, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Felix and I talked about it a little bit. Our cats are very empathetic. And what's very sweet is that they are actually empathetic towards some of the entities that come up regularly. So I thought this cat was coming up to check on me. No, he was coming to check up on Rob. I've been ignored. My feelings are inferior. So, very sweet moment there. But yeah, like, and I feel for entities who get summoned, especially in, like, you know, from what I can understand, there's not really a way for them to say no.
You never expect it.
It's
It is
just
always...
sort of, it's like one of those like hooks out of stage right that just like pull you.
You know, in a baptism when you get like plunged under the water?
Yes.
It is like the moment when you get pulled up out of the water.
Ah.
In fact, just going swimming, whenever you like, you know, rise up out of the water and like, you know, look up, that moment it's just total awareness of the situation which you are now in all of a sudden.
Right.
And so, like, there will always be a level of shock whenever someone comes up in a summoning.
And then, like, just to immediately be told that you should listen to the summoner or else you are going to be burned by the holy fire of God.
So,
and then maybe yelled at for like 15 minutes. Like, that just sounds horrible.
It's what I would say it often feels most like, because usually they don't even bother into the holy fire of God when it comes to the goetic practitioners. I know that churches will do that. But they'll say, by the power of so-and-so who was vested in da-da-da, I command you on behalf of da-da-da to da-da-da. And here's the thing. You can either disagree or you can act like a good student and listen to the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like being in about 4th grade and sitting down at your desk and listening to the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher is in angry lecture mode, and you could be in detention if you don't behave right.
Yeah.
You are already in remedial, and that's bad.
So yeah, part of the reason why, like, we've embarked on this experiment in the first place is because, like, want to know the other side. Like, Rob was even saying, sort of Promethean in that. And, you know, that's part of the reason why we're going to go through the summoning thing sometime within the next week, I guess, before the next podcast. Who knows?
I would really like to know what it's like
Yeah.
to be summoned by you through the means, through
Yep.
the traditional means, and go through that. I want to be able to talk about it.
Yep. And, I mean, just to be absolutely clear, if anyone doesn't understand, Felix is going to be the channeler. Rob is going to come up in Felix. I'm going to be the summoner. So, you know, we're just going to basically be able to talk about it afterwards, just like this.
Yeah, and Felix will talk about his experience of it.
Yep.
In fact, you can even do it in order. Felix talks about his experience before, I talk about my experience during, Felix talks about his experience after the fact.
And I talk
Because after, you're going to dismiss me, and Felix is going to be Felix again.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's how a summoning should go, is that the person comes back afterwards. That's another thing that I want to talk about, is that the entity, once they're gone, usually don't know what happens to the body afterwards. Like, so depending on how the dismissal or the banishment goes, there could be a psychic toll or even a physical toll on summoner, channeler, or both.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure this is something that I'm going to be talking about more with Felix, because, You, Rob, don't have much experience with the aftermath.
I will say, part of the goal of doing this properly is that when a practitioner is aiming something psychic at the entity, even if it's a nice psychic thing,
Yeah.
That the entity receive the psychic thing instead of the body that
Yes.
the entity is residing in.
Yes.
That whenever the channeler becomes awake again after the experience, they're not going to feel the after effects of that psychic force because they weren't actually the target.
Yeah. And most of that is on the summoner to be able to properly target that. And it just honestly takes talent and or practice, which is very hard to do.
You have to have practice.
You have to.
It's not just talent. You absolutely have to have practice, and it means that there's going to be a few times in your life where you do it wrong or kind of bad.
Yeah.
Before you get good.
Yeah. Or you learn exercises that don't involve summoning that are very strange.
I mean, if you have a lot of psychic practice doing certain psychic activities, then you're going to be able to use that in a goetic summoning ritual, and you will have gotten your practice doing that some other way. But if you're already, and I know you were, if you are already able to use psychic dominance against someone to impose your will on them and make them do what you want, then you already went through something in your life that was pretty damn messed up.
Yeah.
Already. Like, so you have to go through something to get these skills.
It's very unfortunate that that is the truth. Unfortunately, I went through some shit that gave me these skills. And so I am now trying to figure out how to teach others these skills so they don't have to go through the shit. But
I do expect that anybody who is learning them has probably went through their own level of stuff already. I don't find anybody who enters this field and does it with capability at the levels that you have. I just... This is not a field for fools.
No. Fools get learned real quick. You either stop being a fool or you stop being...
It's a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Either you are forged or you burn.
Yeah. And that is a lot of, honestly, psychic training in general. At least in this reality, there is not ways to do it safely very often. Because we don't have regular avenues of practice.
How do you spot when someone is covertly looking in on you?
Yeah.
Well, you have to have someone covertly looking in on you in the first place to be able to catch, and you have to have it happen enough times that you know you can catch it repeatedly, which means that you have to have a lot of stalkers. I'm sorry, you're welcome.
Why are you saying you're welcome?
Now you have the ability to spot all of your stalkers.
There you go.
You're welcome. I'm sorry.
Yes. So that's just like one example of a psychic skill that you can develop, is that sort of like knowledge of entities that are looking in on you. Also the ability to determine who they are so you can directly summon them is a related skill. That one's a lot harder to cultivate, to be honest. Because, like, it does involve summoning what you think has been stalking you.
Yep. There are some ways to get clever with this.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest thing is that if you know an entity will answer a particular call, then you know how to summon them initially. Right. After that, you're probably going to want to get a better identification on them. Well, they're probably in the kind of summons where you can get that information from them. Yeah.
So knowing what questions to ask, how to ask them, and doing it in a way that you don't absolutely piss them off, so maybe you can call them again in the future, is some of those soft skills, I would say. But, like, just basic knowledge of your own brain is something that is sort of a psychic skill in and of itself. Knowing when your thoughts are not entirely your own, or ways to tell when your thoughts aren't entirely private. This is getting into sort of that, like, 3.5D to 4D awareness, is when you're able to sort of determine when your thoughts are being messed with and how. Is definitely a skill that is hard to cultivate.
It is an awareness of mind control.
Mm-hmm.
Mind control and mind tampering.
An easy way to start doing this, and this is something that Felix and I did, sort of, kind of accidentally, kind of on purpose. Neither of us like commercials.
Haha, yes!
Absolutely hate them.
You are right not to like them.
And so we have basically not had ads for years now. But it really started up, I think, like 2018 or so. We just made sure that there were ad blockers on all of our computers that would connect to, like, YouTube and stuff, so we wouldn't be interrupted by ads. Haven't watched cable TV with ads. I mean, even if we try to do it in, like, a hotel or something, we just end up turning it off because the ads are so bad.
Movie channel.
But, try that out for even a month. Get an ad blocker for YouTube. Get figure out some way to watch your shows where you don't have to see the commercials. And then go back and try to watch some commercials. And notice how much it pushes a very, I want to say, consumer mindset. Where, honestly, it is very anti-doctor in a strange way, in the fact that there's a lot of advertisements for prescription medication and basically talk to your doctor about it. And either your doctor will have a like freebie for it already, or they're going to be like, you don't need that.
So, one thing that these will do, actually, even beyond implanting specific suggestions, commercials are designed to make you mentally vulnerable to more commercials. They are made to make you mentally vulnerable to suggestion in general. And if you watch, let's say, 3 hours of television a day, is that normal?
Right around, yeah.
So if you watch 3 hours of television a day, then you are getting
at least an hour of commercials.
An hour or 30 minutes?
Oh, it's closer to an hour now.
My goodness.
There are more commercial breaks.
I'm a little bit...
getting bad.
It's pretty bad. So
yeah.
If you have... So it's not even just the amount that you've gotten. Commercials are regular breaks in concentration and focus.
Yeah.
So if you watch a whole movie, that whole thing, you get to spend like a couple of hours focused on one thing. But if you watch a 30-minute show on a network television
you're going to
station,
have 2 or 3 commercial breaks that break your concentration from the show that you were trying to watch.
And it's really bad with some of them because they're made to really scatter your attention and focus. And some shows are designed to scatter that attention and focus even more. And so your media diet is really going to change how you think.
Yeah. So, that's an interesting one way to sort of flex those psychic muscles, being aware of when you're being influenced by even just like the media you consume is definitely a good start, and a pretty safe start, rather than just like trying to summon up a goetic demon and have a conversation, because it's probably not going to go the way you think, and it's probably not going to go as well as you think. So
I will say I'd like to explain why it is that I'm even talking about this on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to come over here and
Nope.
tell you all ways to fuck with me.
Nope.
Which is kind of what I did today. Like, I understand that plenty of what it is that I've said on this podcast can be used against myself and other demons.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I already am fully aware of what goetic practitioners talk about and how much they really try to figure out new ways to mess with us.
Yeah.
I want to do an experiment, actually.
Ooh. Live experiment.
This is not one of my demon tricks. Those are other things. We talked about this a little bit off podcast. Felix has a story that he wants to tell about a goetic summoning that he heard another practitioner did.
Yes.
I would like him to come tell that story and then come back after him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want him to tell that story and then I want to say what I think about it.
Cool.
So, ready for that?
I can be. Yep. All right. So Rob is getting ready to bring Felix back. So we are going to go ahead and switch that out for the Felix portrait. And then he will come back after. A little bit of switcheroo in the middle of the switcheroo. Always takes a little bit. There we go. Hi, Felix. Welcome
hey.
back. Apparently you have a story to tell us.
I do. We didn't really figure out how we were going to do this ahead of time, so it's a bit surprised that I'm coming in the middle of things, but, you know. So, back around 2001 or 2003 or so, I was only able to find other goetic practitioners talking about what they were doing on, like, PHP forums online. It was very, very hard to even find anybody in person. I was in Louisiana at the time. And someone talked about how... So there was a discussion about how you convince a demon to get them to do what you want.
Right.
And this person wasn't under the understanding that you simply summon them, they are bound, and then you just tell them, and then they do it.
Okay.
So they thought you needed to make this way more freaking complicated than it needed to be.
Oh, no.
So they... and also they weren't using a person or a mirror or something. A lot of this was very sigil-based at the time. People were using the little images... People were using the little images that come in the Goetia that are corresponded with each demon.
The seals,
The seal. And so they took the seal, they basically summoned this entity with that seal, talked to the piece of paper and said, well, now, you're going to do what I say, and until you do what I say, this is going to keep happening. And this that was keeping happening was... This person had figured out a way to take this paper sigil and prop it up in a way that a fire would slowly burn it until the thing was done. They were basically using fire to torture this entity. They were burning this entity using the seal. Like, slowly, until the deed was done. They would not put out the fire until the entity delivered.
Wow. So what would have... What... I have so many questions.
From what I don't know how much follow-up I really read on this. This was like, over 20 years ago. But from what they said, it worked. Mm-hmm. Basically, the demon did the thing and then they put out the fire. But the way that they talked about this,
instant,
they were...
like they had to do it right then.
It sounded like it might have been a couple of hours. Like, it was set up like a weird little cook fire.
Ah, gotcha.
And, like, demon on a spit. Roast demon on a spit, but with the seal. So, like, they were really proud of themselves for doing this. They thought they had come up with something very clever. And all I could really think was, like, why did you think you needed to do that right off the bat, though? Like, how many times did you try this before this to figure out that was this your first time? Did you just come into this thinking that you needed to fucking fire torture an entity to get what you wanted? What the hell is wrong with you? So that was the thing. Now let's see what Rob thinks.
Yeah, let's see what Rob thinks. Thank you for sharing that story, Felix. We're going to get Rob back in here, because apparently Felix had to share the story, because it was his story. And that's one of the things that's really nice about Rob. He's not going to try to shuffle through the memories to tell a story that Felix can probably tell better. Welcome back, Rob. Oh, the face. Oh, absolute shock face. Did you not remember it entirely?
Not the way he told it.
Not the way he told it. See, that's another reason why I'm glad that Rob had Felix come up to tell the story while Rob has his little emotional thing over there. Felix is going to remember, Rob would be reaching through Felix's memory of the event, whereas Felix can just recount his memory of the event. So apparently there were some details or something that Rob will share with us when he has recovered that was apparently different than the recollection that he had.
I'm trying to talk about this. I did not know that it was torture until delivery.
Oof.
And the way that it wasn't just that the sigil was set on fire, that the seal was set on fire and it was done. It was like a slow cooker, which is just awful. And there's really no reason to do that. There's no reason to do that to anyone, period. But to just do that right out the gate, to think that you needed to do that right out the gate. There are some disturbed individuals that try to practice this art. I think some disturbed individuals invented it in the first place. But this type of work often attracts a certain type of individual who would be better off playing very bad video games.
You kind of, in order to do it the way as it is written, you kind of have to have a certain mindset. It's like they say about certain professions pull certain types of individuals. I'm not gonna get political in this right now, but
yeah.
So, certain professionals bring in certain types of individuals who may or may not have certain types of sociopathic tendencies, or psychopathic, or, non-empathetic. And basically to treat something as your enemy or adversary before you even, have seen it requires a level of, non-empathy. A level of othering that is often found in hate groups.
Well, that's the thing, is that there's wanting results.
Yes.
And then there's this.
Yes.
This person did not go into this wanting results. This person went into this gleefully happy that they had found an excuse to torture.
And honestly, if you require torture to get results, you don't deserve those results, in my opinion. But, I can sit here and armchair judge.
The phone book of demons is full of descriptions of what us all can give you if you just get us to show up and ask us. I'm going to just say it. All you got to do is get us to show up and ask us, and it's pretty much going to happen. There's not much else that needs to go on. And so adding this weird punishment kink on top of it, that's forcing your kink onto other people.
Yeah.
This is not a consensual thing that's happening.
It's not been consensual from the beginning, but yeah.
But, this happens. What you have to understand is that there is another person with a physical body on the other end of the phone, somehow, somewhere. For an entity to come from somewhere, they have to come from somewhere. They have to come from a body at some point.
Yeah.
So if you're going to spit roast them, that happens to them somehow.
Yeah.
The best thing that could have happened is that it was a dream. That they basically had a nightmare of that happening or something.
Yeah.
Often whenever people are coming over being channeled or summoned or whatever, like it's going to be dream work. That's the way that they're able to do it. But like if you're doing this, you're doing this to someone. It's real.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, like, you just come at it with that assumption that what you're doing is really affecting the entity on the other end of the line in some way. And that's what makes it effective. Like, this guy literally thought that he was spit roasting this demon through their seal.
I think he was. If you want your results to be real, you have to let the demons be real too.
Mm-hmm.
The demons are as real as your results are.
Yeah. So, just thinking about the personal, ethical, moral consequences of those kind of things is something that you just have to think of as a practitioner in this kind of realm. And that is honestly the main reason that we do the work that we do, is because we don't want to essentially condone demon torture.
It's just like, you have to understand that demon is simply the word for the other side of the pantheon of a religion. Mm-hmm. That demons and gods are the same thing, just playing on different sides. And all of them are also real people.
Yeah.
You can't have something come from nothing. So all of them have to be real people on some level, somewhen, somewhere. And you're not just playing with dolls.
Yeah. Definitely not just playing with dolls. So, yeah. I mean, I'm really happy that after even all of this discussion about how bad it can be and how bad it's been in the past for, like, through other goetic summonings and stuff, that you're wanting to do this experiment with me. I'm really excited. I'm honestly excited to see what's going to happen. And
I am looking forward to it.
We're definitely going to report on the results next episode, which will hopefully be on Sunday, if real life or astral life or whatever doesn't get in the way. So.
And just to emphasize that all of this is real, astral means stars. It means space. The astral plane is outer space. It's a real physical location where real stuff and sometimes people are.
Mm-hmm. And Rob should know he's out in a spaceship right now.
I am a spaceman. We didn't talk about that, but I've mentioned it a couple episodes by this point. I'm coming from a real place, and it's in space.
Yes, yes. So, anything else you want to share on this topic, or can we get Felix back for the third time?
I'd just like to say it has sounded like a real downer, but yeah. I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah,
I really, really wanted to talk about this, and I'm glad we had this conversation.
Actually approached us with the idea for this episode because it's important to talk about, in our opinion. So, yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so much for showing up again. As always, we appreciate it. Look forward to chatting with you post official summoning next episode.
Yes, I look forward to the post game on that.
Post game.
We might
invite you to the after party this time. So, all right. So we're actually going to get Felix back again for, I don't want to say for realsies, but for like actual wrap up end of the episode stuff, instead of just coming in to tell a story and then Rob reacting to it. He's taking his time, getting his grounding, Very important to do, especially after he's been in and out several times.
Hey, in case you didn't catch it last episode, I'm going to go through the grounding right now because I am feeling pretty loose because that was a bit intense. Feet, makes you aware of gravity and where you are. If you just pay attention to the soles of your feet, you will feel a lot more present and better. And it will help you be there as opposed to dissociated. Get to your knees. Just what are your knees doing? How are they feeling? Do you move your legs any? Get to your belly area. This kind of taps you into your core muscles. Usually helps you be more aware of your posture, and also if you're like hungry, what's going on with bathroom stuff. Rob pointed out just how important it is to pay attention to bathroom stuff in this profession. Get to your lungs. Your heart's there. You can pay attention to your heartbeat. Pay attention to your breathing. Take a good deep breath in and out. Third eye area, middle prefrontal cortex. Basically your forehead. Just feel that area in your awareness and your awareness of your own self and your thoughts. Top of your head, it's where your body typically ends, and then 2 inches above your head is where your energy field typically ends. And then just take that awareness and bring it right back down to the soles of your feet. And I feel a lot more here now.
Welcome back. I know it's been a bit of a downer of an episode, talking about a lot of the like bad stuff that can happen. I mean, my past with it is a bit of a downer. But it's important to recognize, the history that we're working from, personal and occult-wise. And, feel like it's a very important episode to have. I'm really glad to have Rob's opinion on things. He's been a very valuable resource.
I want to talk about the story that I talked about.
Yeah.
And, so I didn't really understand how much of it he did or didn't know until he reacted to it, and I couldn't really understand that until it, because this is something I've been trying to understand and experiment with. If I'm thinking about something and I'm using telepathy to talk to Rob, and I'm like referring to a memory that I have, how much of that does he get? Mm-hmm. And apparently what he got was that time that practitioner talked about burning the sigil for the summoning.
Right.
And there was kind of a context attached to that there was some sort of more complex thing than just burning the sigil. Mm-hmm. But he did not really get the entirety of what was happening until I explained it to you.
No, he actually came back, and I mean, you guys heard it on the podcast. I had to talk a little bit because he was in shock because he did not realize the full extent of what happened.
He was thinking about the full implications of what it meant.
Yeah.
With my brain.
Yeah. With your brain, which he needed a moment for. So yeah, how do you feel after that channeling?
Actually not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that when Rob has strong emotions, those are his emotions. He takes them with him.
Right.
And he doesn't usually leave me feeling like wrung out.
That's one very nice thing, and one of the reasons why Rob and Mantis and some of the others that we work with are ones that we have continued to work with on more of this casual channeling basis, is because they don't leave stuff behind, or if they do, it's not on purpose. If an entity ended up unlocking some unwanted memory or deep emotion or something and ended up crying or something in Felix's body, he's going to feel the physical after effects of that, but he shouldn't be feeling the emotions that they were feeling.
Yeah, if they have a good cry or something, and by the way, I'm a big crier, so I've actually invited entities to come over here and process emotions because it's really easy for me to cry. If they have a good cry on me and then I'm back, I will have the physical after effects, like face feels a little raw, maybe my head feels a little sore or something like that, because the cells of the body are still going to need to get through the stress cycle.
Right.
They're still going to have to deal with that. But the emotional after effects, the thoughts and stuff, that's not really something that impacts me. It's more about, like, there might be a little residual with the physical body.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's what a polite entity should do, is clean up after themselves. And that's how the aftermath of a summoning should be, is that they take their detritus with them.
I will say that some entities may not be as experienced as Rob when it comes to this. They may only be used to being thrown into a body, made demands of, and then thrown out. Which means they're not going to know how to cry good for you.
Yeah.
Or how to pack up their emotions until they've actually had that experience and applied
Honestly, some of our work with Rob and with Mantis and with others have been a bit of rehabilitation, because you have to get them used to the idea that there can be something other than goetic summonings. Like, Mantis in particular was rather adversarial with me when I started working with him individually, because that is what he was used to. And, like, they may distrust people with good intentions because they're so used to distrusting everyone.
Not only do they not really have a reason to trust people by default, but since they've been distrustful by default, they've not had to use the muscles, the psychic muscles of feeling out whether somebody is trustworthy. Yeah. Because the assumption is that no one is trustworthy.
Yes, that is very true. So, yeah, aftermath is often the summoner checking in on the channeler, recapping what's happening, doing the cleanup. Nice thing is that there's not much cleanup to do because we didn't do a ritual.
It's interesting. I had a bit in the middle where I came back in. I didn't expect that. I felt pretty groggy at that point.
Yeah, you did sound kind of out of it. So, we do have not a strict sort of thing, but that's because, like I said before, we've worked with Rob for years. So at this point, if he's like, hey, it'd be better for Felix to come back and explain this, and then I come back afterwards, we tend to trust his judgment because we know him well enough to trust him to judge how much the body can handle. I notice you're yawning a little bit, Felix.
Yeah, I'm that was a lot.
It was. It was.
And I still have to listen through the podcast to get the full extent of what happened. I have kind of the post-it note version of what all went down. And I also get after effects from doing these.
Yes.
And since Rob talked about and listened to some stuff that he was uncomfortable with, and discomfort is different than intolerance. It's like that gave him discomfort.
Yeah. I mean,
so, like, I'm sort of digesting the after bits.
Yeah. Yeah. I did talk about banishing in front of him. And he actually noted that he didn't really have much to say.
And at a later date he might have more, because this is still the rehabilitation phase. This is like Rob's first conversation about some of these things straight on.
Yes.
And, he might be going back up to the ship and having a big think about some of this stuff.
Oh, he probably is. Yeah. Knowing him, he's probably thinking over everything that we've talked about so far. But yeah, so Felix is looking a little bit run down. We've had a at this point, a third cat check-in, so I'm taking that as a signal as we should wrap this up.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening to Bad Occult Podcast. This has been episode 3, our discussions on summoning, channeling, some of the technical stuff that goes on. As always, you can reach out to us on Bad Occult Advice on Tumblr. Or now you can reach out at badoccultadvice@gmail.com. You can listen to older episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Substack. Yes, Felix.
Is it Bad Occult Advice or Bad Occult Podcast? Gmail.
Bad Occult Advice.
Oh, wow. We got that?
Yes, we did get that.
Oh, I thought some other bozo got it.
No,
that was us.
That other bozo was us.
Yeah, so...
We discovered that we have had that for years.
We did that to ourselves.
We
Great.
did that to ourselves during methane.
Oh! Is that what we did?
Yes, that's what we did.
That makes more sense now.
So,
all right.
yeah, you can listen to back episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Substack. We have video backups of these live streams. A little bit of cut down for dead air at the beginning and sometimes the end. On YouTube, Bad Occult Advice on YouTube. Or you can always follow us on Bad Occult Advice on Twitch to find out when we do the lives. Anything else we should bring up before...
I am pretty vaped from this one.
You are toast.
I am toast.
So I'm going to go butter the said toast. And this has been Bad Occult Podcast, where we do, or at least talk about inadvisable things in the name of magical science. I have been, as always, Tyler Cadmian, a.k.a. Shadow. And with me, as always...
Felix S. Warren.
Thank you again, and we will... definitely have another podcast soon. Bye.